all for coming out to listen to us speak about the wonderful topic of property tax system. I am Ellen Owens. I am your Bastrop County Tax Assessor-Collector. I took office in January of 2021, but I have been in the business in the tax office handling this stuff for the last 25 years.
Great. So the presentation, we've done different presentations as the appraisal district focusing on appraisal. And Ellen and I have been tag teaming a couple of presentations about the appraisal district and property tax and our offices and what is the difference between our offices. Because a lot of people think that we operate under the same form of government, the same budgets, everything like that. And we're here to educate today about that.
Absolutely.
So appraisal and property tax, what is the difference? So different, not the same. So location.
That's the first thing that we have different. Although we are close in proximity to each other, we are two different separate locations. I'm at 211 Jackson.
I'm at 212. Our organization, and we're going to cover that. We're going to cover funding. We're going to cover how we get the job and our functions or duties. And of course, notices, the different lovely notices that you get from both of our offices.
Yes.
So, kicking off location, Ellen covered that a bit.
Yeah. So on this, yes, that is the appraisal district at the 212 Jackson, and I'm just right across the street at 211. So makes it very convenient for taxpayers whenever they're confused and not for sure which place to go. It's just right across the street to handle whatever need they would have.
And this image here is an aerial image that we, the appraisal district, we fund. And this is a flight that was taken between December of 23 and 1/30 of 2024. We call this eagle view or pictometry. So when people say we use drones, no, we actually use airplanes. We actually fly the county. And thanks to my board of directors, we will be flying every year now.
Yes.
Tax.
So this is a tax. We are a branch of your local government. I am an elected official. We get our budget that we present to the commissioners court, the county judge and the 4 commissioners, and we are a part of that. I am elected by voters directly by y'all. I am responsible directly to y'all.
And for the appraisal district is actually a political subdivision of the state of Texas. We are a separate entity. We do not fall under the county. And our organization is governed by a board of directors, and the CEO or person in charge of the appraisal district is the chief appraiser. So for funding the appraisal district, how do we get our money so that we can operate? Where does our income come from? Well, indirectly, it comes from property tax. Local taxing authorities based on the amount of the taxes levied in each taxing unit. The budget is submitted to the board of directors and local taxing authorities before June 14th. That's the preliminary. And then they have a budget hearing and an adoption of the budget on or before September 14th. Now this graph might be a little hard to see, but this just lets you know how indirectly your property taxes, you're going to pay your property tax. You're going to pay it to the tax assessor-collector. She's going to distribute those funds to these taxing entities. And then these taxing authorities are given a proration of the total revenue to determine how much against our budget to know how much we need to fund our budget. So 61% of our funding comes from school districts. So to say that we're governed by the county, actually, I think the school district probably has a little more say in what we do, but they really don't. But that's where the most of our funds comes from.
And the funding for the tax office is a direct from the taxpayers. Our funding comes from the property tax bills that I send out. I get a budget that is approved through the court, so that budget is directly funded through the tax dollar and collection of fees and services. Our office also does DMV, so we have fees of service that goes along with that helps offset the budget on that. Our budget is submitted to the county judge, who serves as our budget officer in Bastrop County, and then he submits it to the court for approval. It is on the website. It is open. We have transparency for anyone who wants to know what my budget is. One of the other differences is how we get our job. As I stated, I am directly elected by you, the voters. Every 4 years, I run on the same cycle as the president does. I'm on the ballot to be elected again for 4 years. I am very fortunate that y'all have elected me to my second term that I just started. I have another 3 years and 9 months before I'll be on your ballot again.
And for the appraisal district, getting the job. How am I going to get this job? Well, I made application. Who applies for this job? Wait, no, the people do. So I did apply for this job, and I was interviewed by the board of directors, and there were other candidates, and then I was selected. And so they actually hire me. I am an official employee, and I am at the mercy of my board of directors, which they're really good. So anyway, functions and duties. This is another area where we are different in what we do, okay? And there's a common theme that's going to come towards the end of this presentation so that you all know where we're headed. But the functions and duties. So for the appraisal district, we're responsible for what's called the mass appraisal, or the appraisal of your property for property tax purposes. And when you think about mass appraisal, let's step it back maybe to a fee appraisal. If you've purchased a home or you've refinanced your home, you might have had your property appraised for the mortgage company, and that's where an individual was able to come to your property and look at it and give you a value at that time. In mass appraisal, there's a given date. January 1 of every year is the appraisal year. That's the evaluation date, okay? And in mass, it's a sampling. It's all the properties are going to be appraised, and we do that through sales of properties that we can obtain. It's through analysis, and then there's a statistical process that goes on to apply that sale value to all the unsold properties, so that we attempt to appraise everything uniform and equal. The other thing that the appraisal district does is we administer exemptions, okay? Your homestead exemptions, disabled veterans, disabled persons, and we do administer another special value that's called ag that everyone refers to as an exemption.
And the functions of the duties of the tax office. Although we are all under the property tax umbrella, what I do is I get all of the values from Faun. She gives all of that when she certifies the values to me, and I take it for each entity, the counties, the schools, the cities, the colleges, the emergency service districts. And I said, this is the value of the property in your area. You need X number of dollars to make your budget. So we have to calculate and say, last year, this is how much you collected. This is the value. To collect that same amount of money, this is the rate that you're going to be. I like to call this my floor rate because it gives them no extra money. It just gives them the exact same money that they did. And that's called your no new revenue rate. When you see all the notices on the newspaper and all of this stuff, that no new revenue rate is simply that. They get no more additional revenue. It's the exact same amount to make the same amount of money they did last year. Now, the state lets them have a 3.5% increase for inflation every year. So I add the properties, and then I add that 3.5%, and then I give them basically their ceiling that says this is as high as you can go before you have to take it to the voters to approve any rate. So you've got your no new revenue rate, and then your voter approval rate, which is anything over that you have to take to the voters. There's some other rates in there, the de minimis rate, different stuff that we have to calculate to put on there that just because we love doing rates so much. But the two rates that y'all are concerned about is the voter approval rate and the no new revenue rate. The no new revenue is exactly the same amount of money. The voter approval is anything over that at 3.5%, they have to bring it to y'all. The next is I send out my tax bills, which I also lovingly call my love letters to everyone, to tell you how much each jurisdiction needs to collect from you. We send those out to you and says this is the amount that you owe to the county, to the road, to the school, and any other jurisdictions that your property is located in. And those go out in October. I am expecting this year for it to be a little bit later because, as we all know from hearing on the news and everything, the legislator is looking at passing property tax breaks for homeowners. They're looking at adding an extra exemption that would have to go to voters in November. So more than likely, until we get everything out of this legislative session, bills are going to wait till after that election to see what passes and what doesn't pass before I send them out. Normally you get your bill in October. This year it might be November. The next part that we do, which isn't the property tax system, but it's done in my office, is the DMV titles, your registration, your car stickers, your titles, your handicap placards, anything that has to do with your DMV. We do that. And those are the three main duties that I do in my office on a daily, yearly basis.
So even though our offices are different, located in different places, we get our job differently, our functions and duties are different, there is a common denominator between our offices in that in order for Ellen to calculate the tax rate, she has to have the appraised values from the appraisal office. Okay, so that's where we work together.
Very well.
So notices. So for the appraisal district, April 1st or as soon thereafter, I like to call these my invitation. So I send out my invitations, and ours went out Monday, April 14th. And we call them our invitations because it's an invitation for property owners to come see us. Come have a conversation about this notice that you got, that we're saying that this is your value for this year. It's a great opportunity to review your property, review what characteristics we have on your property. And anyway, the thing is, this says 2023. I do have a copy of a 2025 if you want to see it. But it says right there, this is not a tax statement, okay? Ours went out the 14th, so you should be getting them very shortly. They are the values are on our website also. But the reason I point that out is because we start getting checks in the mail. And we can't collect. So people think that they're to pay. And so in the middle part, of the notice, it's going to describe the values that we're talking about. And this is an opportune time for you to come and visit with the appraisal district if you're concerned. So like this property is hard to see. It had roughly a $70,000 increase in value, but to come and talk about what that is, what happened here. So it's a time to have that conversation. And protest deadline is May 15th, okay? Because our notices went out April 14th. By law, it's May 15th. If you get a notice after April 15th, it's actually 30 days from the date of notice. Okay. What else was I going to say? So that's the reason I call it my invitation. It's a time for us to have a conversation about your property. This is the best time to get anything that we might have wrong on the property fixed. Okay.
And these are my notices, which are the tax bills that go out. As I said, we usually send them out October 1 or as soon thereafter as practicable. This year it's going to be probably a little bit later. But this is what it looks like. You can notice there's a little similarities. We do use the same print vendor because we try to keep things consistent between our offices for the taxpayer to make it easy. Has your property owner ID, the different information. Then it breaks down each separate taxing jurisdiction that this property is located, the tax rate that jurisdiction has accepted, any exemption amount, the taxable, and then the taxes due. As I said, I call this my love letter because I love our jurisdictions. I love living in Bastrop County, and this is how we support what we love, is through our taxes. The taxes are due prior to January 31st. So you normally have October, November, December, and all of January. The state gives us those 4 months. Typically this year it might only be 3, to pay your taxes with no penalties in interest on that as a base amount. And then you can the next one, guys. On the bottom, it is the tear off that goes back in with your payment if you choose to by mail. And it has a chart there that says what the penalties and interest are if not paid by January 31st. So you can see October, November, December, and January, it is just the base amount. February, it starts at 7%, and then it goes up very steep, 9, 11, 13, 15, and then it jumps July 1st to 33%. And that's when it's turned over for foreclosure, as some of y'all might have heard about people's property being levied for property taxes that are not paid. But this is what it looks like as far as my love letter and what we do. And of course, if you ever have any questions, you can always just call or come up to my office.
So a year of working together. So we're going to give you a year through the appraisal, through one 1 year cycle. So the appraisal district, that's what CAD, we're not CADs, but thank you. Sometimes I get a laugh and sometimes I don't. Okay, so the Central Appraisal District, the CADs. We do our mass appraisal every year, and January 1 is the valuation date. We're going to do our notice of appraised values April 1st or as soon thereafter. Remember, ours went out November, the 14th. Timely filed protests are held between April and July 20th. July 20th, we're required to take these values and certify them, and we certify them to the taxing entities, and we certify them to Ellen so that they can start the process of calculating the tax rate. What is it going to take to fill for their budget based on the values? This gives us the time to get those values adjusted and as accurate as possible. Last year when we certified at 98. So when we certify, only 5% of the value can be under protest. And that becomes a huge deal as we're pushing towards the deadline, because it takes a lot of value to come for us to close out to move a percentage point when you're dealing in billions in dollars of value. And we actually were able to certify at 98%. We were really excited about that.
What does certify mean?
Certify, we're going to officially tell the taxing jurisdiction that these are the values for 2025. So we're going to certify the values to the taxing entities by July 25th. Okay, so July 20th. I get these two dates mixed up. The 20th, the appraisal review board says they're done. The 25th, we take that and we give it to the entities. So hearings have stopped for a while. And then,
so we've got your year of working together. Now Faun has wiped her brow and said, okay, Ellen, I'm done now, but a little bit here and there, it's your turn. So I get all the values and I start calculating the rates. This is a very important process that gets overlooked by so many people. Everyone knows protester value, protester value, protester value. You don't like what that is, this is going to affect what your bill is. This next process where I'm calculating the rates that I'm giving to the entities to give them their no new revenue rate and their voter approval rate is very important, because their rate that they adopt is going to depend on how much money they need. If they say our budget needs to make this amount of money, they're going to adopt a rate that's going to make whatever amount. So if you want to make a difference in your tax bill, by all means, look at the value of your property to make sure you're getting all your exemptions, to make sure if you tore down that shed that it's taken off of your bill, to make sure that everything is correct. But also you need to get involved with your city, your school, your ESDs, your county to say, do you really need all of these new cars and new computers and newfangled stuff? And what's the cost of insurance? Why is the insurance going up? What can we do to lessen the liability to bring those bills down? This is a very important process in the budget and tax rate process that I've been doing this for 25 years, and I can count on my fingers how many people show up to these public hearings. This is a huge opportunity that gets missed a lot of times. Once the rates are calculated, they are put on a website. And as we were talking about a year of working together, there is a truth in taxation website. It's called Bastrop County Tax Rates.gov.
There's a link on our website.
There's a link on the website. But this is a website that has so much information that the appraisal district is required to pay for, but I'm required to maintain. So it's definitely a hand-in-hand working together. But if you go on to this Truth in Taxation website, during the time of August and September, really heavy so in August, because that's when everyone's doing all of their hearings, it's going to be on there. You can type your name into that search bar and pull up your property. And it's going to have on there if the jurisdictions adopt their no new revenue rate, if they adopt their voter approval rate, if they adopt any other rate in between there, what your tax bill is going to be, when their hearings are going to be, what their notices are, how much debt each jurisdiction has, what loans do they have out. Anything that you want to know about the budget process and the bill process is going to be on this Truth in Taxation website. So
what is it? What date is that?
That actually,
there's no official date. So July 25th, Faun turns everything over to me. I'm done with it, Ellen. I start working on it July 26th. I start handing the information to the jurisdictions. As soon as they hand it back to me, it gets on this website. You can go on this website and put your email address that you won't get an update every time I change any information on there, and it will send you an email to say, go look again, something's changed, go look again. So this website, I would say very heavily check it, or if you don't want to check it all the time, get yourself an email reminder when anything gets updated to that website.
and so if you go to our website, bastropcad.org, there's a little box that says tax information. And if you click on it, you will see a section within there about truth in taxation. It will tell you what truth in taxation is about, and it gives you the link that it just takes you right to that site that you can do your search and you can sign up through the email to get notification.
Yeah.
So another thing that's really, as Ellen has said, the value portion of it is part of the equation. The tax rate is part of the equation. The budget is part of the equation in order to finally get you your tax bill, right? So we had a little over, Leslie Mueller, who is my deputy, is also here. How many protests did we have last year? A little over 10?
Yes.
Yeah, we had a little over 10,000 protests last year. Did you hear Ellen tell you that she could count on one hand the number of people that show up to budget hearings?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any way to have this information in Spanish, like whenever y'all send out? Because there was a lot of confusion this last year that y'all sent with the stubs, like the interest, that's accumulated per month after. I think that caused like a major confusion, and how to explain, like just fill that out because they were thinking that that's how to pay back, make a payment that way. But that was including like interest inside of the whatever to do the property taxes.
You go back to. Just gonna find. Yeah. Just go forward on one.
So this is the coupon portion of the bill that gets sent out. And this is this is what your bill is if paid before January 31st. And then I have a breakdown that says whatever month you want to pay it in, this is the interest on top of that to make your total payment of what you owe. It's not a combined, it's just whatever month you choose to pay it in, that's the amount due.
Yeah, I understand that part. I think there was just checks involved as well, like little stubs. It caused confusion this past year. Everybody was like, so we send this off, like, you know how you pay rent, like, or something. And I was like, no, that's already interest included if you're paying past that. And there was a big confusion on that.
Okay, so I don't have it on this one right here, but on the bills where people qualify, if you have a qualifying exemption, which is someone that is over the age of 65, has a disability exemption on top of their homestead, they have a little square here that says you're allowed to pay your bill in 4 payments. Your first payment is required to be due by January 31st. The next one is by May 31st. March 31st, May 31st, and then July 31st. Those are your 4 payments. You get to pay it 4 times your original bill divided by 4. It's real simple. There's no penalty and interest to it. And then those people who qualify, it has an actual coupon page in there. So after your bill, it will have the coupon page, and it'll have right here above the tear off part, the whole explanation and all of that stuff saying this is where you qualify to make it in 4 payments. You don't have to. You can pay the full bill at one time, or if you choose to, because your budget is at a point where you need to break it into smaller payments, you can do that with 0 penalty and interest. But only if you get those coupons and you have the qualifying exemptions.
I did get those this year. It was the first year that I got them, but I had turned 65.
Okay, and you did get
I
them?
did get them.
Okay, did you understand that the?
I did.
Okay, all right, wonderful,
But I
wonderful.
did understand. At first, I was shocked when I saw that I could pay in 4
Throughout the whole
payments,
year,
but,
yeah, 4 payments, with no
Yeah.
penalty or interest. So it is something that the legislators have made up to help people that are on fixed incomes.
But what I'm hearing from you is that you're wanting to know if in the future there could be anything in Spanish that can help explain that.
I understand the application has to be submitted in English, but some kind of guide, because that's where a lot of people don't understand. They don't even put homestead down there.
We have homestead applications in Spanish.
You do? Okay.
Yes, we do, and they're available at our counter. And if when they come and they ask the receptionist if they want Spanish, we have that. Our ag applications are in Spanish also.
And to protest?
The protest form is in Spanish, and we also have taxpayer remedies is also in Spanish.
At the counter?
We'll make sure it's at the counter, but it is on our website.
Yeah, and spread the information.
Yeah, and this is all with the appraisal district. All
Which
we
is
do
separate.
with the tax office is collect the money. Everything else is done with her. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Across the street.
Yeah, across the street, yes.
You kind of,
Yeah.
you talked about that with TNT. So for the appraisal district, late file protests are held usually between the 1st of August and October 31st. We do have people that do file late. But when it gets to this point, late file protests require good cause. And the appraisal district is not a part of that process. The appraisal review board, there's a separation anyway. But the appraisal review board decides what late files they're going to hear based on the good cause that is mentioned. So they're given a list, they're given the good cause, and they either say yes or no, that person gets to have a hearing. So,
Yeah, so by the time you get your bill and then you're like, oh, I don't agree with my value, it might be too late to go ahead and protest at that point. So as I talked about, we calculate the rates based on the budget, based on how much money they made last year, what's the same to make that, and then the 3.5%. Bills are mailed out October 1st or soon thereafter as practicable. We get them on the system before they hit the mail, so you can always go on my website and look to see whenever they're on there. And then starting from the time the bills get out, we start collecting the taxes until they're paid. They become delinquent after January 31st, and that is a very important day. Not only does it start the penalties and interest on there, but it also has a trigger for the appraisal district.
That's the last day you can actually protest at all for the prior year. And so if you have to think about that, January, if we're looking at now, January 1 of 2025 is our value date, right? You're getting a notice now. You're going through, if you didn't file your protest and you waited until, and the window gets smaller and smaller, okay? You have a big window like this to protest until May 15th. Then that window starts getting smaller for late file protests and other type of protests. And then a lot of protests come in after the tax bills go out because they see their tax. And you can't protest twice, but they'll try to protest. And the protest that's allowed then is what's called a correction to the roll. It's called a 2525D, and it's either a 1/3 or 1/4 over market value. And that's harder to prove, and the burden of proof is on the property owner with that protest. You have to prove to the appraisal review board that the appraisal district has valued your property more than 1/4 over the market value in order to even have a hearing, okay? And that deadline is January 31st.
Question. I got a letter from this company that supposedly, have you guys encountered those? How do they work? They work pretty well.
Yes, I have a sample that I would be more than willing to hand out here in a bit and have a conversation about that. Is that okay? Can I circle back? Can I circle back to your question and answer? Okay.
So,
So the difference is, it's in our dream job. Yes. We both agree that the individuals that work in this industry, either on the property value side or even on the tax side, have a servant's heart. We want to serve our communities. We want to serve the public. So, and it is our dream job. Otherwise, why would we continue to be in it, right?
Right. Yeah. The other difference that we have, as we talked about, is the budget, where our funding comes from and who makes and approves our budgets.
Our notices.
Our notices, her invitation to come see her, and my love letters to support our community. But we do have a common goal, which is great communication between our organizations to ensure the best customer service experience for the taxpayers.
And that's where we have the questions.
Yeah.
So I'm going to come back to your question, okay? Is that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I received at my own home a letter from a servicing company that wants to represent you in your protest. And if they get any reduction, they take a percentage fee of that. And she has some examples and stuff about that. You know, you're welcome to represent yourself. It is, the ARB is a group of people that are your peers. They are people that own property and live in your communities that apply to sit on this board. They have to do extensive training. They have to go through the comptroller. They have to do everything that is required of them before they can even hear a plea to them from the taxpayers about that. So you're welcome to go and talk to them yourself or to use a servicing company.
And we call those servicing company agents. That's what they're known. So own what the individual that you may have received a letter from is in the example that I have given, and they're indicating to you their potential savings that they can offer you. So any questions that you have about your personalized savings estimate that they give you, that's something that you need to contact them to find out how they calculated that, okay? Because we have no idea. This did not come from the appraisal district. Our notices have gone out and our customer traffic and counter traffic has been this letter. Everybody coming to our counter wanting to know why we sent this or who this company is. But what I've given you here is this is my own personal property, my own home. This is my 2025 Notice of Appraised Value. And I wanted to show to you, because you can actually see it a little better, is that my value did go down, my market value. And when you protest, the value you get to protest is the market value. That's the value that's protested. Now, the market value then can affect potentially what your appraised value is. Now, even though my value went down, my taxable value or my appraised value went up, because it went up from $374,910 to $412,401. If I take $374,910 times 10%, because I have a homestead on my property, it says that my property can only go up to $412,000, but it actually went up to $414,000. So my taxable value is going to be calculated at the $412,000 number. Okay. Then I also gave you a copy of my 2024 tax statement. So you can also see that I have a homestead in over 65. It told you right there on the exemptions. I am not. I'm not. No. I am very blessed that my husband is qualified. He qualified when we purchased the property in 2019. Now, there are other individuals that have had over 65 a lot longer than we have, that are even seeing greater benefits of the legislation, what the legislation is passed in calculating the freeze ceilings that we talk about. But this is the letter I received. They indicated that they could give me a property savings of $1,012, and indicated in the first paragraph that if I did not take action, that I may overpay my property tax bill. They gave a property tax rate that is estimated based on your local average, but if you read the very fine print, it's actually a national average. Is that correct, Leslie, when we researched this? That's over the entire United States. So I then just took that information and I took the noticed, and I took my noticed value, I took my exemptions off, that gives me my taxable value. I took the actual tax rates from 2024, and you see that my estimated taxes are $4,700, but I benefit from the over 65 and freeze at $3,275. So you see that number? Based on what they said they could lower my value to, my freeze would still be beneficial. I'm not going to get any savings. So on the savings, in order for me to have $1,012 knocked off my tax bill, they would have to drop my assessed value to $238,000. Well, I also gave you on the back of that page what Zillow says my property's worth and what Trulia says my property's worth. So you remember what I said, you can protest market value. I don't think that this property is going to be dropped to $238,000 for me to see a savings of $1,000.
So this is a company that basically represents people to help you find a better rate. Is that what they're trying to advertise?
Well, it just said it's just a service industry. There are multiple companies out there that do this, that individuals sign up with, so that they don't have to go through the process of protesting, and they protest on your behalf. And as stated in the letter, they're very clear. They say that you're not charged unless there's a savings. It says right there. There's no fee. There's no cost up front, and you pay just 25% of the savings you receive. No savings, no fee. It's that simple.
I'm doing with that admit the protest. It sounds scary, but it's not Like even this whole thing, like they're gonna take a cut off of what, like it's easy. All you have to do is say, okay, I want to protest and send the application back. They'll give you a date, and they give it to you like a day in advance. They give you like a week to serve, months in advance, or like a month in advance. They give you time to work with it, and then you just have to like take all your information to that appointment. And it's literally just like a human being. I was a little nervous when I first done it. And they were like, yeah, like he was really nice to my kid. Like, so I'm saying like it sounds intimidating because it's the first time, but thereafter it's like, oh, okay. Like it was very understanding and like took their time and like looked at everything that I had and understood why the value was not that. And so I really liked that. That was like the good feedback. That's why I tell everybody like stroke test it. Not necessarily always do this way, just so everybody can understand. The only questions is like I would have, what could you take to your protest so everybody can hear? Because what's recommended to take?
We recommend any photos that if you're claiming that there's deferred maintenance, something that is you feel would bring the value of your property lower than what we have it estimated at, then you need to, if you could supply those photos. Because remember, we don't get to get inside. So if you have a roof that's causing you problems, if there's something that's an issue that you feel would affect the resale of your property, those are the items to bring to our attention. I think I saw posted, I couldn't tell you which realtor was offering to give you 3 comparables. I'm not sure what the relationship or the connection is with that, but I think I saw that on one of the Nextdoor or apps last night. So properties that have sold in your area is good information.
That was a question I had.
Basically, photos seem to be mostly what we end up with, and we don't need 80 photos. Okay.
One from every angle.
Because we take that very serious because you've provided that, and that all that gets scanned into your record. But just what's very important that you want to communicate with, and the photos and sales, and telling us why you feel, and it might be a photo of maybe something's moved in next to your property that's you feel is driving your property value down. What do you feel? What is causing that to happen? Because if you're going to protest, there is some reason that you're feeling that value doesn't reflect the market. Does that help?
Yes, I just want to make sure so everybody else.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a question back here. I'm sorry, and I'll come back to you. You had a question?
This reminds me of a scam that was several years ago that we will file your homestead for you, and that homestead does not cost a penny. All I have to do is fill that paperwork out, even if you're having to redo. And so, to me, this is a scam. In a sense, it's a scam, just like the homestead thing was.
People nice, but
Well, I appreciate this statement that was made that it's not scary. As I said before, this is your peers. These are homeowners that live in your area. They are not appraisers. They are not in the property tax profession. These are farmers, ranchers, moms.
And that's if you get to the appraisal review board.
Right.
Hopefully you're not getting there. We have about an 85% resolution before even going before the board. You're meeting, from what I'm hearing, you probably met one-on-one with an appraiser to talk about your property. So go to your informal hearing.
Yeah.
We want to solve things there. But yes, when you go to, if you're not happy with that, you'll go to the next level that Ellen is speaking about, the appraisal review board, and they're people from your community, okay? They're going to listen to what you have to say about your property before they're going to make a decision about what that value needs to be for that year.
Yeah, the committee is legal. That's my understanding. It's not for the county or for the people. It's
Correct.
someone neutral. So it's not like, oh, we're gonna pull their leg, little. So
Yeah,
I really like that was explained in the one-on-one thing. If I'm not consent, that everything that was said there it's taken off the table.
Yes.
But it could be more or less. So in my favor or the county's favor, but it's a neutral, board.
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, ma'am.
When you're doing the appraisals and you say get comparables, you're doing this for Bastrop County. So I'm in Smithville, he's in Bastrop, she's in Elgin. Do you compare to each place or within so many miles of my house?
When we
Or someplace in McDade or Cedar Creek or someplace else?
When we start our search for the comparables, we're gonna pinpoint right at your property and we're gonna
Just go.
expand from there. So we're gonna stay in your subdivision, your area. We even set the parameters that if we can stay on your street, we want a sale on your street first. Return me that one first. And then it just keeps going out. So in homogeneous neighborhoods, so I always throw out like Hunter's Crossing. If you all know where Hunter's Crossing is on the other side of Home Depot, there's a lot of sales in there. So it's easy to pull sales for those properties because there's a lot. What becomes harder is your smaller communities like Smithville and McDade. You have unique neighborhoods, right? So when it becomes a unique property, we have to expand our search. And if you ever had a fee appraisal done, they probably had to expand their search too. They probably had to go outside of Smithville. If I'm going to be appraising a 2-story colonial built in the 1800s, I mean, we don't have a lot of those sales, right? So they're going to go to Bastrop, they're going to go to Elgin to find that, to try it, and maybe take into consideration for location to make that determination. Same way with land. We have a lot of land sales for small lots, 1 acre, 5 acres, but when you get up to someone protesting 150, 1,000 acres, those sales are not as, that's harder to find those, And we have, on occasion, on property that has bordered the counties, if they have brought us information of properties that are within a certain distance of their property that happened in Fayette or Lee or Caldwell County, we will take those sales into consideration. We just have to hand calculate everything because we can't put it into our software system. But we will consider it because that is defining that market in that area. Okay?
I was upset a couple of years ago because it was something I didn't realize, and I thought the appraiser or the guy that I was talking to when I was protesting, somebody should have told me. I didn't realize if you had a lot connecting your property, it could be homestead, the lot. But for years I protested, nobody told me that. And then finally, about 3 years ago, I guess, one of the guys told me and did that. And I was thinking, do these people actually work for us or try to help us when we're protesting?
Well, they finally did.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, after years and years, because I go every year.
Well, good. You're one of our repeaters. We love that because we're just like, hi. It's so good to see
no money. She needs to stay out of
We
here.
love that because we'll say, hi, it's so good to see you, because we see our coworkers all the time and we get to see new people. But yes, that is, all I can say is, I can't speak for the past, okay? I can't speak for how the office was operated in the past. I can just tell you the changes that were made and how we're moving forward together. Yeah, and is that the appraisers are trained that in the hearing. The first thing they're going to look at when a property owner comes in and they're talking about their value, the first thing they're going to look at, they're going to see if there's a homestead on the property to begin with. And they're going to say, have you ever thought about a homestead exemption? That's an opportune time to talk to them about that and say, what is all your property? And have those conversations then to let them know.
My property was homestead. My house
Just was
was,
yeah, it
but
just
my lot
yeah.
wasn't. And I was thinking somebody should have told me this years ago before the tax went up on it.
Yeah.
100%.
I-
Almost from what it was.
I wish there was something I could do about that now, but I thank you for bringing that, and because we will make sure that we have that conversation again with our staff before they start their hearings again, to make sure that they are looking at that as always, because that has been the rule. You're to look at all that, and if it can be homesteaded under one, as long as it doesn't go over 20 acres, and well, you can do it up to 20, and then whatever's over 20, that doesn't qualify under the homestead. Yes,
Could you explain the homestead, how you can go back 2 years if you didn't catch to be homestead? Like,
The late filed homesteads?
well, you,
like, go
yeah.
back.
well, the law allows you to go back 2 years. So if you purchase the property, I'm going to have Leslie help me with this because this is her expertise. So if you purchased the property 2 years ago and you're just now finding out about homestead exemption and you make application now, you can go back to that time period to make application. But what you have to know is that there's additional documents that might be required to prove when you occupied that property when we're going back. And some of that might be, it's just a utility bill. So you just get a water bill, an electric bill, a gas bill, whatever utility that shows when you actually started occupying that property to help us know that, yes, this is when they started occupying. Because you have to understand, we're going back, which means that when we calculate that, those taxing entities,
We have to write refunds.
they have to write a check back. Yeah, we have to, they've received that money. Now she's got to take it back.
Do you
Yes.
get a credit or literally a refund?
Literally a refund.
So does that only apply to your homestead? So if that case, you can't go back and correct in the state and make it it's free?
Well, it's not necessarily I don't know that it's necessarily a mistake, and any corrections to the roll, you're only allowed to go back so many years to correct a roll, and it's there's
It wasn't changed.
yeah.
So it's a different type of homestead. Like,
Well, it's just the processes that were going on at that time. You know, I don't know how many years ago we're talking that this happened.
Mine's more than 2 years.
Right. In those
But-
situations, she's still getting her full homestead exemption. So she paid taxes on getting that full exemption. The only thing that she might see a difference in is the cap on it, that 10% cap, if the value went up 10%. So the refund, we're not talking about getting this massive refund because she didn't get her homestead. It just
Right.
might be, a little bit here and there with the cap on that. And there is limitations on what we can go back.
Thank you.
Yes.
I mean, it was not a lot
Yeah.
in that time frame, from when I could have it, when I did, so.
Yeah, and we thank you for that. Like I said, we enjoy this type of feedback so that we can make sure that our seasoned employees are aware to make sure that they look for that, and any new employees that we bring on, that this is one of the things that we make sure that we train them in.
sorry, I asked a lot of sale.
I think that's okay.
Would y'all, since y'all are saying seasoning, would it be another thing to mention, like, hey, you have a mobile home, have you considered tangling your property into that so it's not two separate accounts? And you apply the homestead it's all?
You
Or
can
is
still
that something outside your scope?
You can still do a homestead if you own the land and you own the mobile home. You can still have the homestead on both pieces of the mobile home and the land. But in order to combine them as to one tax bill, you have to go through the Department of Housing and have that title perfected to real. You have to perfect the mobile home to real property. Or you have to, yes, so that it becomes then tied to the land account.
So if the homestead, like if you have a mobile home and a land, homestead applies to the mobile home because it's not like, how that's what you do to the manufacturing.
Yeah.
If it's just like, legally just sit on there, the homestead only applies to the mobile home but not the land.
It's
No,
supposed to-
this
it's-
is, yeah.
If you own the land,
Uh-huh.
it's to apply to the land too, if you made application.
Okay, because I've seen that where it doesn't do that, and I always just
Well-
assumed it has to be like tabled, like like a
No,
in order for it to like do the whole.
no. If you look at the homestead application, there's a section on there. Because when you're filling it out, it says, is there a mobile home that's tied to this property? What is it? Does it have an account number? It asks that question. So we can include that mobile home with the land. Now, if the person owned the mobile home and they made application on the mobile home at the time and they didn't own the land and they never made application and then they become owners of the land, we send out letters that went out April 14th also, that if the mailing address matches the situs address, it says, hey, do you have a homestead application? And that's on the land account also, to bring them aware of that. Are we gonna go searching for that land at the, yeah.
Yeah, and it's the
But if
same
you-
concept as like she was saying with her 2 lots. She had her homestead on her house in 1 lot, but she can also qualify on that. So if you have a manufactured home and land, the homestead can be split between the 2.
I'm actually, how does this work for air property where there's multiple, I don't know, multiple owners, but you have a deceased person on the property title or deed?
So you have a deceased person and you're wanting to talk about a homestead?
Yes. Well, how would it work? So, for example, if you have a bunch of land, but there's multiple parties who now own it because of airship, and there's a home or mobile home or something put on that land, how would the homestead exemption work in that situation? Not saying that.
Leslie?
That can get very complicated because of probate laws.
Yeah, Leslie.
Right, and if you have several residential structures on the property and like different people may own their own mobile home on that land, each person can file on their own. Now the house or the original homestead, if there is an heir that is occupying that home, there are provisions for whoever's occupying that room as an heir to be able to qualify for an exemption, and there are specific documents that we would need with that application. So there are things like a lot of times someone will pass away, the lady 3 children, and 1 child doesn't the house. They can qualify for a homesteading. They have changed those rules, but there's a list of documents that the state requires together, like the will or you have to leave the sit, have to have a utility bill, and that person may resolve with the things that we can not.
And that would be homestead exemption for the entire property, or is it just that house, the original house on that property?
It would just depend on who's living where. Like if it's just one house in the land, then and you've got one person that moved into the house, then yes, you could qualify up to 2 acres.
Okay.
But some people will have the original home that may be on 5 acres, they got with the original house, and then the other children may have moved manufactured homes out there. And so they would file in each one of their house because they own a portion of the land, and that's where it gets really messy in the land and things come up. Because you can only claim the percentage that belongs.
Yeah.
So there's ways to one for one, but it's pretty complicated. Hard to explain, but we can do it better than Parchman.
Yes, and the exemptions department, if you have that, you just say, I need to see exemptions. When you walk in, they'll give you a ticket. You'll go in and you'll tell them, and they'll either grab one of the. There'll be someone there to assist you.
Because we have to drill down into the actual ownership. There's the parties involved and who lives on it, who doesn't. So it gets big. But and I didn't have to do a little tree out. But we figured it out.
Okay.
So say,
for those options, like late homesteading out 2 years and you can still do, would it happen automatically once the person submits the homestead? The owner will look back to see when they could have done it, or if it has to be like a protest ahead of the process.
if they want to apply for prior years, they have to indicate on the application the years they're applying for.
But it's not part of the evidence.
Yeah.
If I purchase, they file an attribution.
Yeah, for their homestead exemption, they file. The only time that you see a protest on a homestead is usually if we deny a homestead exemption, then you have the option to protest that denial for the appraisal review board.
Because it seems to be like very common that people forget to apply for homestead even because they moved or were not aware that that was a thing, which I've heard many times. They're like, oh, you should do it as soon as possible.
And we sent it, I don't know how many we sent out on Monday.
Really?
Individuals that do not have a homestead, that their mailing address and their situs address match. We send them an application to please
No, and
apply.
I know like people like from where I'm from, like Puerto Rico, like we don't have such a thing. Like that does not exist. Like we don't do any homestead applications that like we don't collect property tax. So like, and I know a lot of people, especially from Latin America, they're not aware of that. And I've seen it where they're like, oh, that's how it works. And yeah, that's another way that we can inform more people.
Well, and I think another thing of informing in the community, and I think we're getting better at this, is that in the Latin community, it was our understanding in the Latin countries that did pay a property tax, you didn't pay a property tax until the property was 100% complete. Here, you pay whatever is there on January 1. So if 40% of the home is constructed, you're paying on 40% of the home. And that we had quite a few protests a couple years back, but we've been working on trying to explain that better to the community. That now we're gonna, and then the next year we'll pick up the rest of it.
If there's a shed, you're paying for the shed.
Well, yeah, that it's prorated. Yeah, a percentage is put on the roll. We're required to discover and list. That's part of our job. Discover what can be taxed and listed. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you have folks that are claiming homestead and it's really not their home. So their homestead. You have people that work on that?
Yes, we do. Legislation was passed last year, or the last session, that requires us to perform homestead audits now. And some people have maybe heard in the news that we were requiring new applications every 5 years. No, that's not true. We have a software that we are using that is auditing our homesteads, and they're giving us information back with some of them certificate of death, death certificates, because when we used to investigate that, when I first went to work at the appraisal district, I was reading the newspaper for all the obituaries, and I was circling and going, okay, this person needs to file a new home, or they're losing their homestead. That's not published in the papers that much anymore. So where do you find that? And a lot of elderly move to where their kids are and they pass away out of state, and you don't know about that, okay? So when we discover that, they give us a report, and we take a look at that and we send them notification. We can't automatically take things off. We have to have a process that we send a certified letter saying, hey, it's been brought to our attention. And we had several that indicated that a person was no longer alive, and they walked in. And I was just like, wow, the name, the date of birth, I mean, everything matched too close. It was just like, wow, this is crazy. But he was able to prove that he was who he was, and so he was able to keep his homestead. But that's the type of stuff. They return to us, they search the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicle, that gives us any driver's license that has multiple situs addresses that are the same, that have different names, that would indicate that there's potentially someone else living there. But we all know what happens there. Does anybody update their driver's license like they should? Well, I mean, yes, I do, but there are individuals that don't, and they keep that same driver's license with that old address.
So office box.
Yeah, and so yeah, there's things like that. they return the DMV, the death records. They actually also are looking at the Zillow with those, aren't they?
They did, and help us get voter registration.
Yeah, and voter registration. They look at all that, and they give us an exception report that says, hey, you might want to look at these. And so out of the number that we reviewed this year for the audit, how many did you guys review?
7,400.
Yeah. So they reviewed 7,400 because every year we have to review at least that many accounts so that every property is relooked at every 5 years. Only 300, about 300 accounts required us to send a letter. We were able to investigate them further and find out that, or have a conversation with the property owner that did not require a new application.
So if they are planning homestead in, say, one county, and then in 2 different counties,
We'll find it. It'll show up for us now.
will it actually show up?
Yes, it will. And
Out of state.
out of state, it will show up. And yes,
I was told
Yes.
the reason why some of them work hard is because the person passed away, but they died in another county. And so if you die, say in Bastrop County, that record goes to y'all.
no, it doesn't.
Okay.
We don't get any of that information. Nope. That's the reason we pay for this service.
Yeah.
To get it. And the other thing that we have to be careful with is that an elderly person that goes into a nursing home, they're allowed to keep their homestead exemption as long as the person that's living there is a family member. They're not renting it. They're not renting it out. So they're allowed to keep that. Yes, ma'am.
So very couple, let's say one husband 65, wife 62. Husband passed away at 65. Will she continue with spouse? Is it the spouse like with the 65 and over benefit?
She would qualify as a surviving spouse.
And you have to send a death certificate to update the any of that information.
Right, as long as she was 55 with this kind of case cancer. And yes, you are required to make application, provide a death certificate, verifies it's in your driver's.
If I could just add one thing, when I think about your job, it's not about trying to get more money for the entities or less money for the entities, or catch this person who did this or catch that person. Your job is trying to make it as accurate and full as possible.
That is correct. Thank you, Mr. Red. Yes, it is. And that is, that is something. No, that is something. So who audits the appraisal district? Okay. Well, you as the property owners audit us when you protest the property. You're holding us accountable to that value, right? But we also have what's called a property value study. We are studied every 2 years, where the state, the comptroller's office, is going to pull a sample of properties out of every school district and determine whether or not the appraisal district is valuing correctly. And they value the property and they compare it to the value that we have, and that creates a ratio. Our value divided by their value creates a ratio. And we have to be between 95 and 105%, the appraisal district. And if we are not, our values are considered invalid. The first year we're out, they give us grace. They give the school districts grace. But the appraisal district the very next year has to bring that school district back in. We have to bring their value back into market. And if we don't, they lose school funding. This happened in Smithville ISD in 2016. The appraisal district in the prior years had gone out, got back in, and got out in the values. They were out, and that was within a 3-year window. So they lost funding. They lost $600,000 to their budget from the state. That's a lot of money. We pride ourselves that we don't ever want that to happen. So the property value study was for 2024. The state studied our 2024 values. The results of that came out January 31st of 2025. We passed every school district at least 99.8%. And Bastrop ISD, we were at 102%. So if you were there, you're a little bit over. But remember, we're allowed to be between 95 and 105. Then we're also audited on our procedures, governance, our board of directors. Do they meet as required by law once every quarter? Do they publish their agendas correctly? Do they have minutes that are published? Do they do an evaluation on the chief appraiser? This is all information that this state's going to come in, and they're doing that audit on us right now. So they're going to audit our governance. They're going to audit a couple other line items that they have, and then they also audit our policy and procedures and our appraisal standards. How do we appraise? Are we following the normal standards of valuing property? Do our policies align with what the law says for the state of Texas? They're studying all that. They pull samples of our records to make sure that we're doing what we say we're doing, and we have to pass that. You don't want to fail, okay? And they're studying that right now, and those results will not come out until the fall. Late November is when they come out. But for the years that we have been studied, we have passed. And so I'm very excited about our team and making sure that we do that. And so if the state can come in and say that we're doing the job right and doing it good, we must be doing something right. But also remember, we're valuing 78,000 properties every year. Are we going to get them all right? No. I'll tell you right now, we're not going to get them right. But that's the opportunity for property owners to protest and say, hey, let's get that right, because we want that to be correct. We want an accurate roll. We want the best. Yes,
So you don't foresee any additional problems? Because I know last year when they passed, the legislature passed the bill for a 65 exemption, 65 years old exemption, the municipalities ended up in a deficit and they had to correct that. We saw this here, Bastrop, everybody had to deal with that. Now with what's going with the schools and the change for vouchers and all that they're discussing right now, do you foresee any additional chaos coming down the road with taxpayers?
Always, short answer, legislative years, a lot of things come off really good in theory, but in practicum, sometimes that's when you find out what the problems and where the road bumps are in that. Every time anything rolls out that affects our world, there's so many moving parts in it. It's like a, Swiss watch that's got all of this stuff going on that if you tinker with one part, it's going to have effects all over. So, we always expect some issues, and, that's why we are very active in our legislative processes. Faun and I both are active in our associations in our community. Leslie is the president of one of those associations. To be president. She's president-elect. Bastrop County is very active in our association so that we can make a difference, and our voice does get heard in the legislation.
But every appraisal district, every tax office, every school district, every city, every municipality, what goes on up at the House every 2 years, it can be a little scary as to the ramifications and how we're going to implement it. Just like we were talking about the TNT, the website. Okay, so that came out of legislation. Appraisal district, you're going to pay for this website. You have to create it, pay for it. But the tax office, you get to update it
and maintain it.
And it's just okay. But you have to understand, I thought that was odd, but there are appraisal districts in the state of Texas that also collect.
Right.
We don't. We stopped collecting in 2000.
And 3.
Around that time.
2002.
In the 2000s, the early 2000s, we stopped collecting. So you stopped paying. We were not all together in one.
Did you mention all those changes that you're talking about? One of the difficulties with the appraisal district and the taxing office is the software has to be changed.
Yes.
You know, it's not like changing a formula on your Excel spreadsheet.
Yes. Yes. And that occurred in 2 years ago when they implemented the new homestead amount, and the school districts with the the circuit breaker also, but also the calculating the homestead for the school districts with the
Registration rate.
the compression rate. They added a compression rate to it, and we're all just like, oh, whatever. Okay, so we have a software company that we use, but Travis Appraisal District has a different software company. So we're not all on the same software to boot. And then the legislation passed that, and they passed that and the governor signed that in July, and they said, you have to certify that this year. Usually the laws that they sign in go in effect the next year. You have to make that change now. You talk about a scramble of trying to get that
To
done.
get the numbers to me by July 25th, whenever it was
With the
signed
correct
in
numbers.
July. And then to get all my software updates to
Yeah.
send out the.
So that,
Yeah.
yes, thank you for bringing that.
Yeah.
It is.
It
a
does, it
logistic
can be
Yeah.
very concerning whenever they.
And something that legislation did pass, it's called the circuit breaker. So homesteads, if you have a homestead, have a limitation on the increase in your value of 10% plus any new value that has not been on the roll. Don't think of that as just new construction. If we missed a building and we didn't have it on the roll for 3 years and it gets added, that's called new value because it has never been taxed on the roll yet, okay? Well, what about those properties that don't have a homestead? Well, the circuit breaker was introduced, and that is 20%. Your value can only go up by 20% on properties under $5 million. $5 million and above, they figured you could pay whatever, I guess. But under $5 million, there's a 20% limitation. And what this benefits is your rental, your people that own rental homes.
Right.
Okay? They're owning single-family residences, and they're having to follow the market, yet their taxes are going to be higher than their neighbor that might have a homestead and have had that capped for a while. Well, it's called, how do they try to fix that? So they offered what was called a circuit breaker. It's in year number 2. They signed up for 3 years that they're testing this, and we really doubt that the legislation will take it away. They usually don't ever take something away that they've given.
And just to respect your time, something that a lot of people ask, what are the dates that the community should be looking at? Because you mentioned one of the important things is that we participate and go during these what to be dates from where to go and what, like during the year, what are those key moments that the community should be listening closely before they do these budget adjustments?
Well, for protesting the value, you want to make sure you file your protest by May 15th. It doesn't mean you're going to have your hearing by May 15th. You want to make sure you have filed your protest so that you can have that hearing before the July 2025 date. Then, when it comes to the budget hearings,
Yeah, so as soon as she gives me the values, I start calculating the rates and sending it to all of the jurisdictions. So I would say the month of August, you should focus very heavily on your taxing jurisdictions for budget and tax rate hearings. All of this, the dates, the times, locations for your entities will be on that Truth in Taxation website. That's what gets updated. You can sign up for your email to get notified every time I update that information.
That'll be your schools, your
your cities,
municipalities,
Your county,
Your county.
your MUDs or ESDs.
Your trip.
and you have a new ESD, ESD3.
Yes.
Yes.
And then I'll add, thank you guys so much for doing this because, this is how people learn, right? And these guys are up here volunteering their time to help our community and answer questions, in reality. Instead of just, coming to these things to our phone, the circuit what? Homestead what? Because the more we can educate, the better people understand.
The better our role.
And I would like to,
And we strongly feel about that, and we really enjoy doing this, and we really enjoy doing the tag team part
Yeah.
because you get to see both sides of it, not just the appraisal side. You also get to see what happens on the tax side of it.
I would like to give a hand of applause. Just for the people that we're recording today, I would like to say this is the first workshop about a series that we're putting out just to, like you said, education for the community. The better we know, we're able to either learn for ourselves or help a neighbor. So I highly encourage people that share the documents that we're going to be sharing, the videos, and also the things that are coming out with the program that we have. We were lucky to get a grant from the Greater Fayette Community Foundation, which we're gonna be offering help with probate, with lawyers, with wills, property titles. There's a lot of things that qualify for that, but we would like to invite you to participate to these workshops that are coming now. We're gonna be posting them. The chamber's been helping us share the information. The Smithville ISD, the city, we're posting it there. The library, it's all over the place. So make sure that if you have questions and you would like to learn more, please come. And if you can't, share these posts with people that you know that will benefit from. So thank you so much for coming today. Thank you.
you, Leslie.
I want to say thank y'all because I see the camaraderie and love between all of you as employees. And where I live, we do not see that. So I think that is absolutely awesome. You all work together and your employees come. So
We're lucky.